in the chaos of competition, when that teammate has the ball or is making a play and may be isolated and by himself, they may not be able to see you, but they know you're there. And this call is not to tell them what to do, but to tell them whatever decision they make, we're there to support them. That call is the most important call in a rugby match. We want to give that call out to the Tim Wilson family tonight. We are with you. Trying to describe, every speaker tonight has tried to describe some aspect about the magic of Tim Wilson. Done just a fantastic job. We've gone to some places I didn't think anybody could get to in the conversation. But we have. And this room exists because of the vision of Tim Wilson. He had fellow teammates that were with him in the founding. Alan Mealy, the brains of the operation. John Woods, one of the inspirations of it, but the magic came from Tim Wilson. Al, we're so glad that you are the surviving member of our founders. Thank you. Yes. I'm gonna tell maybe a story or two. They may not have a point. And we're not afraid of that as rugby players giving speeches. There's a part of Tim that I'm not sure everybody fully appreciates, but when I say it about him, you may understand. Tim had an almost surreptitious, sly leadership technique. As tough as he was as Tarzan, as loud as he could be when he was explaining, Tim had a leadership technique that was to almost secretly persuade you into making decisions that you didn't even know you were making. That taught you how to develop your skills that you didn't even know you had. And he always had this Tarzan persona when he was dictating. But in that, you can tell that his heart was one that wanted you to be as good as you could be, and he would do anything he could do to help you see that. That's his legacy among our rugby club. He taught us how to do that. He taught us how to teach ourselves, which helped us teach others. He taught us how to look for the qualities in a person, their skill levels, and not change them, but make those skill levels that they possess as good as they could be for them. And then figure out how that helped your entire team. That's what real mentors do. That's what real coaches do. Anybody that doesn't understand that soon finds themselves in another life. You know, my first recollection, really, of Tim Wilson was our first game as a rugby club. We'd had 2 practices, but those 2 practices barely taught us the rules of the game, much less even who was playing for our team. But our first match was at the Girdlestone Rugby Tournament, Fort Sill, Oklahoma, in a tournament against military teams and teams from all over the country. Our first match was against a team from Fort Sill, Arkansas. That was Tim's former team. He had played and coached for them before he ever came to Oklahoma as a rugby player. So we're the first match of the game, first match of the tournament. It's the first match most of us on the team had ever seen. We'd never seen a rugby match before. And we're getting ready to play, and we're warming up, and we're acting like we're ready to go. becomes clearly apparent that Tim Tarzan Wilson is not going to play in our first match. He's not going to be on the field with us during the first match. Now, Tim claimed that it was because we were playing against his former team. And he claimed that it wouldn't have been right for him to play. We were pretty sure that it was because of whatever he had done the night before. And how much the night before had, what do you call it, hung over to the next day. But on true retrospect, and in knowing how Tim developed our program, he wanted to let us play on our own. It was like, almost like a parent watching your child take the first step. You want to catch them, you want to hold on to them. Sometimes they got to fall on their face to know what the hell it is they've got themselves into. That's how Tim taught people. And he taught us how to do that with our teammates, how to do that with our families, hell, how to do that in your career. That leadership technique that Tim had, helping you develop those skills that you had that you didn't always realize you had, and bringing them to the forefront of your preparation for anything. You've heard about him as a lawyer. We've heard about him as a movie star. We know him as a teammate, and that was a skill that he brought to us. At one point in my rugby career, Tim Wilson decided that I really didn't need to be the center in the backfield, that I needed to play number 10. As we heard tonight, that was a position Tim was playing. That's proof he actually was a back, even though he would never admit that. And Tim knew that that's the position I was supposed to play before I knew it was the position I was supposed to play. Tim knew that there was part of how I looked at the game and how I felt about the game, what I did during the game that fit that position. And he handed me the keys to a car that I've driven my entire life. Not just as a rugby player, but those skills, that belief, those things that Tim helped us express. And I'm not the only one. Every rugby player in this room that has played rugby with and for Tim Wilson has had this experience where he allowed you to do what you knew how to do and to do it better than you thought you could do it. That was his skill as a person. That was his skill as a lawyer. From what I've seen in the past 48 hours, that was his skill as a father and grandfather. It's something that not everybody has the skill to do, but all of us should have the intestinal fortitude to appreciate and accept and learn to live by it and learn to live with it. I've got other stories I can tell. I'm not sure we all need to hear them. We've heard about as much stories as you could possibly hear tonight and still be awake and still be alive. I will relay one other experience with my friend. I don't even know what to call Tim. My brother. That's not fair. My colleague. That's not real. My teammate. We all are. But one of my real life first experiences with Tim is we were in law school together. Now, let me be as clear as I can be. We did not start law school together. We managed to graduate law school at the same time. So we would have to say we were law school graduates, not classmates. So the fact that we graduated law school at the same time means we would be studying for the bar and taking the bar exam at the same time that would actually allow us to be lawyers. So Tim's idea of what that meant was that he and I needed to be roommates. We needed to live together. That meant we were living at my house. Much like Noah's Ark, with life on the line, we spent 40 days and 40 nights together. Thank God that's the only time we ever lived together. And thank God for our rugby teammates, primarily, she's not with us any longer, Sue Bryant, he's not with us, John Woods. But for them, we wouldn't have made it to the bar exam. They put us up the night before, drove us to the bar exam. We didn't drive ourselves to the bar exam. They didn't trust us to make it to take it. All of our teammates at the time kept us from killing somebody because we studied, we cramped, we studied, we were miserable study mates. And we went out to rugby every rugby practice, and we were just the meanest, nastiest, hardest people to deal with. If it wasn't for our teammates, we really would have killed somebody. So I thank you on behalf of Tim Wilson. He thanks you for allowing us to be lawyers. When we graduated from law school, we commuted to Oklahoma City because we worked in the city of Oklahoma City, and our driver to get us to and from work was Steve Tresman. And again, a teammate helped us survive. If it hadn't been for Steve, we never would have gotten to work. Look, there are other stories to tell, and all of us have been telling stories. And it's so important for us to think about how our connection that was initiated by Tim Wilson and our founders have made us who we are. In all seriousness, we wouldn't be in this room without it. If you give it some thought, where you are and how you operate and the way you address things in your profession, in your life, are those skills and those things that we have learned and picked up from each other, but with Tim Wilson at the head of our learning tree. When I've had a career in athletics, great. I wouldn't have had any of it if it wasn't for my teammates on the rugby team. If Alan Veely had not gotten me to look at a job in the general counsel's office at the University of Oklahoma, I never would have arrived there. If the enforcement rep at the NCAA that put the University of Oklahoma on probation and was about to give us the death penalty, if he wasn't a rugby player, we might have been gotten the death penalty, and I never would have gotten into athletics. In a meeting, when we were about to get our ass in trouble, I go to a meeting. Sitting across the table from me is the enforcement rep that had made the case against OU and about to put us at the death penalty. And he keeps staring at me, and I keep staring back at him. And he finally said, "Do you play rugby?" And I looked at him and said, "Yeah, you play for the Kansas City Blues, don't you?" He goes, yeah, that's who I play for. We had just beat the Kansas City Blues about 2 weeks before. We knocked this powerful club out of the national championship playoffs, and he did not really like it, but he had to talk about it. Well, my boss heard that conversation, and made a decision that I was leaving the general counsel's office and I was going into athletics and I was going to manage that probation. Well, that launched my career in athletics, all related to what Tim Wilson, Alan Vealey, and John Wood started. That connection on how I address issues in a high profile, everybody watching live performance, play by the rules endeavor is all based on those principles that we all learn, that we all apply, that get themselves back to our friend Tim Wilson. I'll never be able to repay that other than by living the life we all lead. It is something that we honor every time we do something positive for ourselves. More importantly, we honor Tim Wilson every time we do something to help somebody else. Thank you, Tim Wilson.
Thank you.